Oh, hi kids, it's me, Mickey Mouse, right? The official Mickey Mouse here, totally. And I heard recently that there's a new ULTRAKILL update, and I don't know about you, but I'm willing to try out this new alternate shotgun. So let's get in there and let's try it out now. Why don't we? All right. So I'm very well aware that this thing was collectible last time, so I already pressed all the buttons. This is interesting. I just wasn't expecting this. I was kind of expecting it just huh? Huh? What the fuck is this piece of shit?
You know, I'm honestly not surprised that you would say something like this. I know that most people probably would, to be completely frank. I'm gonna be real here. I'm looking at this new gun, and it's just like, what the hell is this thing? Like, it's replacing my shotgun. What the fuck? Well, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Booshican lab, where today we're going to teach you how to use the alternate shotgun. You want to slam? You want to go crazy? You want to go crazy? You want to go hollow? The alt shotgun is currently the newest alternate weapon to the game, releasing in patch 15, the Arsenal update. We got this wonderful beauty who is really weird. Being the alt shotgun, it has to compete against the default shotgun, which, if you didn't know, has a lot of things to it. Projectile boost, shotgun swapping, ooh, shotgun swapping.
And oh boy, it does really good at that, doesn't it?
Come with me today on this journey to learn more about the alternate shotgun. The alt shotgun is the newest and the only of the current 8 weapons, counting alternates of course, that is melee based entirely. It is the only one to have such a niche sort of gameplay style to it, and as such that can usually lead people to find it hard to use the weapon, so to speak. And what better place to learn than in the sandbox of all places? Now, we're simply going to go over the charges here first. The primary function of the weapon, as you can tell, hold mouse click, left click, makes a little boom in front of you. Very simple in the way it's executed. However, you can get crazy with this, just like any other weapon. And as you can tell, if I very quickly swap between them, you can tell I'm doing it very fast. The reason for this is because, very similar to shotguns, the alternate shotguns share a sort of latch down cooldown. I'm not really exactly sure what to call it. However, as you can tell here, when I let the weapon fully go and then swap, it is much slower than if I were to simply just do this. Next, we're going to be talking about this gauge here on the bottom center. This here is a speedometer, if so to speak, and it will change based off of your movement speed, and will later on affect the damage when we go over damage values. As you can see currently, it is in green from either walking or standing still. However, if I'm to slide, as you can see, now it's reached yellow. Now, if I start going really fast, as you can see, it's starting to hit the red territory. You can also very easily hit red from just falling or slamming hard enough on the ground, as you can see. And overall, red just requires going slightly faster than normal. You're gonna have to be speedy to use this weapon. I'm just gonna put it real to you. There is no slow with this weapon. There is no taking your time. This is a weapon that you're going to be looking with, and you're going to be going insane. You're going to want to go gorilla mode. And you know how you're going to go gorilla mode? You know how? You're going to go fast. You're going to go fast! Now, throughout these 3 clips I'm going to show you the damage of all 3 of the versions of the alternate shotgun. The first being the green. As you can see, it insta-kills the stray, does not insta-kill the schism, and leaves the malicious face at half HP, doing a grand total of around 3 damage per hit. As you see now in the second clip, testing the yellow gauge, you can see that it insta-kills the stray, insta-kills the mannequin, and almost insta-kills the malicious face, leaving him at just barely enough health to be killed by a knuckle blaster punch. Next, in this final test, there's going to be testing the red gauge, and as you can see, from this, we can see that the stray gets killed instantly, the mannequin gets killed instantly, and the malicious face gets killed instantly. Do keep in mind, this does put the alternate shotguns on a cooldown upon hitting the red gauge of the weapon. This is meant to be more used as a kill type situation, more than a oh hey friend type situation, as you can probably guess. After hitting an enemy with the red gauge of the shotgun, the alternate shotgun will go on to a cooldown for exactly 7 seconds. In this 7 seconds, you will be unable to use the primary fire of the weapon. However, as you will see, you can still very safely use the primary fire, as you can tell, making it so that the primary and secondary fires are entirely separate from one another. Some easy ways to obtain red speed being through either a form of whip canceling, such as that, by simply canceling with the knuckle blaster or feedbacker, or even the whiplash itself, if you will. Another easy way is simply by rocket riding straight up and then ground slamming, as you can see, and those are a few easy ways and easy tips for using and getting red gauge. I bet you're thinking that I'm doing some sort of joke right now with all these boss health bars, but I'm actually not. Here I'm showing off that every single major tank outside of one is capable of being killed within a single cycle of the red gauge of the shotgun. So here I did miss a hit on the Mind Flayer, but that's not like that actually matters. Here with Ferryman as well, we see that they get insta-killed. Cerberus, Hideous Masses. Do mind you need to hit the Hideous Masses in the tail. Do mind that you can also two-shot gutter tanks if you first break their shield with a Knuckle Blaster, as the primary fire does break Gutterman shields. And as you can see here, the only tank that can survive a cycled red gauge of the alternate shotguns is the Sisyphean Insurrectionist. A few miscellaneous things to mention before we move on is that by hitting hitting enemies with the red gauge, as such, like this, will put each one of them on a cooldown. However, it effectively puts the final one on a 5-second cooldown, as it takes roughly 1 second to kill the second and third, meaning that all 3 of these together will have roughly a 5-second cooldown where you just can't use any of them. And then once this one's cooldown's done and you're finished with this attack, this one will be done, and then this one will be done. Along with this, speed on the alternate shotgun is actually kept for a second even after going lower, as you can see from this slight flashing bar when I change speeds, meaning that for roughly 1.5 seconds or so, you will retain the speed and be able to move slowly while also having red gauge power in your shotgun. However, throughout the entire time I've been teaching you about the basics of this shotgun, I have failed to mention the knockback, if you will. Surely this is a downside to the weapon, right? Being able to just Laying back like that? There's certainly no way of ever weaponizing that, right? Well, 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 look who decided to stay around. You have your baby food, you learn the basics, and that's how you go with the mode. So get silly, I'm get real. Better get your gamer juice out. See, I got my gamer juice right here. Better get it out. So we're about to go real, we're about to go hard. A pogo can be performed by looking down and firing straight down with any of the alternate shotguns, as you can see here. The knockback from this can be changed based on the current gauge. However, each successive one will always give diminishing returns. And as you can see, it is unsustainable. Even at red gauge, you will eventually have to fall back to the ground. There are multiple forms of pogos, however we are going to start with a basic version simply just called bouncing pogos, where effectively you just whiplash and continually hit the enemy with your gauge. You will never hit a red gauge with this, and it will be constant sustained fire, but as you see, you can just keep nailing him over and over again. Another form of pogos is chain pogos, which is a very difficult one to master. This effectively is when you hit two pogos like that, where you effectively launch your red gauge, launch yourself off of one enemy into another enemy. You can start it with a yellow gauge as well, if you do it right. However, red gauge is obviously the easier option. Launch pogos is effectively very similar to a normal bounce pogo. However, you don't disallow yourself from taking red gauge hits, and you just begin to hit a massive hit and you launch yourself extremely high. This is extremely useful in cases like the cyber grind, where a lot of bullets could be on you at once, and launching yourself really high into the air can sometimes be a good idea. It should also be mentioned, slightly from said before, but in the cyber grind especially, launching yourself via pogos, even with just a single one, is extremely viable. Here I'm just doing this to show, but you get an insane amount of distance and speed from just simply hitting an enemy. It's very good for the cyber grind in cases where you have enemies constantly swarming you, and it is very good in situations in campaign levels where you need to kill two tanky enemies in quick succession from one another. Do not be fooled by the slightly short section, because only true can do these advanced tactics. At least anyways, the chain pogos. The other ones you can probably do, like right now, with just like 2 ounces of wood. Beyond simple main fire, the alternate shotguns also provide their own forms of the alt fire and their own changes when regarding those alt fires. And to not talk about them would be not only weird, but also weird. Yeah, it'd just be...
Hola, da gorilla azul.
The core eject on the alternate shotgun is very simple and just right-click to fire the core. However, it does also base off your movement as well, as you see by walking, it goes further. By standing still, it's almost right next to me. By jumping up, it goes really high. It does have some form of velocity inheritance. A rather interesting and somewhat similar aspect it has to the default is that it too can boost projectiles, this one being the core from the alt fire, and the rockets from the rocket launcher, as you can see. Both of these produce a hit scan Malrail explosion, meaning that yes, you can in fact core nuke with this. Hitting a rocket with the core eject, in more specific terms, will produce a red explosion if the rocket is freeze charged, whereas hitting it normally, such as that, will just produce a simple yellow explosion. However, both are malicious rail beams, and regardless of if the weapon is freeze charged or not, will produce a core nuke. Due to core boost being based off of hit scan, it is very easy to chain off of coins. With the proper timing and the proper weapon utilizing, it is a interesting and cool thing. However, I will bet you that you will probably never actually use it in in-game play due to its finickiness and its difficulty to do. An easy way to utilize the core nuke is by rocket riding and then hitting the core mid-air with the rocket launcher, as so. This will produce a core nuke, as you can tell, and is extremely powerful. The way you perform this is by simply rocket riding, shooting a core in front of where you're trying to go, aiming slightly, starting to tilt the rocket slightly up, and letting go of alt fire, and you should hit the core somewhat successfully. On the topic of core nukes, if you wish to core nuke with the core eject, I highly advise against aiming up due to its velocity inheritance. Instead, fire roughly, I'd say that's 70 degrees, 70, 80 degrees straight up. Right where the bottom of the core explosion, the center explosion, will hit the ground still, but not low enough to like here where like a filth could try and tackle you and accidentally eat your core. So as you can see, it's a rather useful way to do it, and it's much better than simply that. As you can see, you don't really hit anything with the center. In case you did not know this already, the explosion and the thrust from a core nuke is based on how far you are. If you're in the yellow area, you are taking 50 damage and not going as far. If you are in the red area, you are taking 35 damage and getting full thrust. Most people will end up in the 50 damage full thrust area. However, the alternate core eject, by walking into it, as you can see there, you are actually able to very reliably take the 35 damage core ejects, I mean ultra boosts, allowing you to survive multiple ultra boosts in a row. So you've learned all about the blue. Now we get to learn about the green. Bet you didn't expect that. Green gorilla. It's time to talk about the pump charge. By this section being short, I don't intend for it to come off as I don't like this weapon. In fact, I really fucking love the pump charge. It's my favorite of the three. It's just that compared to the sawed-on and the core eject, well, the sawed-on barely has anything more, but compared to the other two, the pump charge does not nearly have as much on paper. But that doesn't mean it is not important. In fact, it's my favorite because it's the funnest. Alright, the alternate pump charge, unlike the default, will actually create a shockwave on hit. This shockwave does the same amount of damage for the first two pumps. However, the third one will do 7 damage, whereas the first two will do 3.5. This radius increases per pump. As you can see there, it hits these ones. You can see here, it hits all 5 strays instead of just 3 of them. And along with this, it actually does more damage than a Knuckle Blaster shockwave, as you can see. With the overpump version being a red explosion that does 7 damage and only does 35 self-damage to the actual player. This increase of damage on the shockwaves allows for up to 17 damage on a fully overpumped red gauge hit and 13.5 damage on a shockwave hit. Only counting red gauge, of course, because I'm going to be dead honest, I'm not going into all the numbers on all the different pumps and everything. Now, as you can see right here, we have 4 Mind Flayers. The first one we are going to kill with just the simple 3 red gauges. As you can see, it takes 3 red gauges. However, now if we are to pump this once, we will notice that the Mind Flayer will still take roughly 3 hits to kill. Going with 2 pumps, we can see as well that although the Mind Flayer is taking more damage, it still requires a third pump to finish the job. However, if we go into overpumps, you will see that the Mind Flayers are now only requiring of a 2-shot in order to kill. This goes for every other tank that is 30 health or below. You can see here a list of the damage. This one here on the left receiving an overpump hit with the weapon, having about 1/3 of its health remaining. This one, and this one receiving 1 and 2 charges of the pump respectively, having a little over half their HP left. And this one here hit with no pumps at all, red gauge by the way for all of them. And it has a roughly 1/3 of its health lost. Best way I often find to escape an overpump's self-damage from hit is oftentimes just to go faster than the overpump can deal damage to you. As you saw there, I was going faster than the overpump could hurt me, and thus I took very little self-damage, if any. Another easy way is also just being higher than the explosion. As you can see here, I take no self-damage from this as I was in the air above them when I hit the filth. Despite this section for the alternate pump shot being so short, I honestly believe it to be the best of all 3 of the alternate shotguns if you're simply going with just one. And we'll get to that later on why more specifically, but one thing I'll leave you off on is that idols can be broken by melee weapons, and the alternate shotgun is a melee weapon. And when you add the shockwave to it, and including the pump charge, you can effectively do mass AoE, kill idols with the weapon, and just absolutely shred through tanks, making it probably one of the best guns when it comes to tank shredding and just overall AoE damage. However, to call myself a alternate shotgun aficionado without mentioning Red Gorilla would be a sore crime, not to mention it. So, on to Red Gorilla! The sawed-on alternate shotgun is an odd case. I see a lot of people use it over the overpump. However, if I really go over it, it really isn't. It's really kind of iffy. It's got some parts to it that are really good, and then other parts that I feel like you should, if you're gonna shotgun swap, do it with the blue and the red, not the blue and the green. And I'll go over more on why you should do that later. But for now, on to the Red Gorilla. The chainsaw variant of the alternate shotgun, very similar to the others, has its primary fire. However, the primary fire has the added addition of being able to knock the chainsaw. The alternate sawed-on's alternate fire and primary fire can be charged at the same time, allowing you to fire both at the exact same point, which, if you didn't know, that would be the amount of damage you would do to a hideous mass if you fired both at the same time, almost insta-killing it. Similar to how you can fire a core in the middle of red gauge hit stop in order to insta-kill a sentry, you can as well also fire the chainsaw in order to ensure the death of a sentry as well. This does not regard you as much if you do not have your alternate sawed-on as the final in the series of sawed-on combos. However, the sawed-on excels at a sort of escape combo where effectively you hit the enemy and then punch it with the knuckle blaster and then create a saw trap. And if it is the last in your set, all 3 will be on a cooldown, and this will give you the ability to set up saw traps while you are on your downtime.
And yeah, that's kind of just everything with the chainsaw, to be dead honest with you. It's not really that interesting in terms of its overall sort of tech, I guess is a good way to put it. However, it provides a really unique escape tool. And also the chainsaw does add a lot of extra DPS, especially if you knuckle blast it off and then follow it up with magnets.
Now, however, we can in fact go on to the final section of this video, which is the suggestions section. This is the part where I tell you what you could be doing right if you decided to listen to me. It's all subjective. Don't take it literal. Welcome to the Suggestion Channel. In this rather short wrap-up, we'll be talking about the weapons, the loadouts, what you should choose if you want to try and use just one, just two, that sort of thing, and hopefully we'll, you know, I'll at least be able to convince you to do what I want. For which shotgun to actually choose, I would personally choose the overpump, and I would have it on my either third or first slot so that I'd be able to still shotgun swap if I just wanted to have one. The reason for this being the overpump, the default, only does 2.5 damage in its primary fire, while the sawed-on and the core eject do 3 damage in their primary. So you get more value out of shotgun swapping with them than the other things. I'll put a video up while I'm talking here, showing the damage differences. However, when doing this with the alternate shotguns, you'll see that they each take equally the same amount of damage, so thus you are losing no value from having the alternate overpump equipped. Another reason being the extremely high AoE and tanky killing damage. An overpump at max charge will do 17 damage. That's enough to do over half the HP of every tanky class enemy in ULTRAKILL outside of the Insurrectionist, and that is insane when you actually compare it to like other weapons, like the SRS cannon that does just below 1/2 at 12 damage for instance. Another reason also being the area of effect, the 7 damage red explosion being able to kill street cleaners, soldiers, stalkers, anything around what you're trying to kill will probably die, and so probably will the thing that you tried to kill anyways. As for running 2, I would suggest for keeping the chainsaw as the default, as the chainsaw is the one that is left relatively unchanged regardless of if you're using the shotgun or the alternate shotgun, with the only difference being whether or not you want 3 or 2, whereas the core eject has the ability to do things such as the airstrike nukes or the core boosts in general, just allowing it to have much more value and purpose than the alternate chainsaw. Outside of like long-range core nuking, honestly, there's no reason why not to pick the alternate core eject in all reality, and even then, if you need long-range shots, just simply get a little momentum and then fire the core. It's really not too bad. Just walking forward already makes it go so much further. It's actually insane. And as for if you're running all 3, I would recommend then the chainsaw, because there's nothing else. And the chainsaw would probably be your last, as to do chainsaw escaping, where you just launch yourself out of there, knuckle blast the chainsaw when it comes back to you, and set up a saw trap. Now, sadly, chainsaws are weighed at 3 on magnets, so you won't be able to fire all 10 of your silver saws. You'll only be able to fire 9 plus the oversaw, assuming you're carrying overheat with you as well. So you will be 1 short. However, that chainsaw will probably break immediately upon touching anything anyways, so it really doesn't matter that much. Overall, for damage, I would recommend trying to either learn how to pogo, or if you're in the cyber grind, just knock yourself really high up, slam back down, knock yourself up really high, and then slam back down. You'll do a lot of damage. It'll be hard for things to hit you because you're constantly being flung all over the place. Especially like if you're pogoing in actual campaign levels, it's very hard for most things outside of virtues and sentries to hit you midair. Not even guttermen can usually keep up with your speed, even at like full tracing capacity. For enemies you might want to be a bit worried about, honestly, insurrectionists are probably the least of your worries, if I'm going to be real. They're just too slow and they don't hurt enough or anything like that to really harm you in any meaningful way. And if they do, just set it on fire and ram into it a few times. It'll be dead anyways. Mind flayers, on the other hand, are actually a relatively large issue, along with mannequins, due to their tracing bullets. Constantly being in the air usually means that these things are just going to start orbiting you and randomly decide to kill you. So it is best to deal with them now and then. Ferrymen are kind of a dice roll. If you're using ledge camping, which sometimes, okay, sure, yeah, ledge camp, don't do it all the time, loser. That can work. However, using upward pogos to try and just bounce on top of him does not work, because he'll just use his up dash and maul the shit out of you. So As long as you're smart with Ferryman, you can usually deal with them, but otherwise the lightning and their upward attacks can become a major issue. Aside from that, virtues and sentries are also always still the priority target. They just create columns of light and hit scan beams that are very hard to deal with. However, with both of them, luckily the gun you are using also happens to be a very useful when it comes to its damage, and you'll probably kill them very easily, especially considering that you do interrupt sentries with the alternate shotgun. As for anything extra, guttermen, gutter tanks, stalkers, and hideous masses, for instance, just don't really pose that much of a threat. Since you can break guttermen shields, you can just continually whip, like yellow whip them, and they'll die. Same thing with gutter tanks. If they continue to try and be annoying with you, you can just whip them. You can just dash away for a second, hit a slam on them, and then ta-da, they're gone. Hideous masses, same exact thing, especially with the chainsaw as well. You saw how much damage that did. It almost killed it. If I punched it back into it, it would have died. And that's kind of your cue that, yeah, the chainsaw is really good with the hideous masses, but almost exclusively the hideous masses. Outside of that, I don't feel like there's anything else I really need to bring up, per se. At least in the campaign, there's a lot of different spots for this, and Cybergrind, I kind of went over a lot of it just then, because Cybergrind's probably the mode you're mostly going to be playing in. Campaign-wise, it's also very useful. It can oftentimes be better than the shotgun in a lot of places, especially if you get good with even single pogos, just launching yourself somewhere. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is the first time I've done any sort of project like this. I'm just going to be real here. I'm going to stutter. I'm going to stutter. This is the first time I've done any major project where I actually have a video editor opened. I think this video will be somewhere around 30 minutes long, something along that line. So this is a first for me. I definitely stuttered a lot. I had a lot of grammatical errors in the video, I'm sure of it. I'm sure the audio may even be ass. I'm trying my best not to have it be ass, but I know for a fact it's very likely it's going to be ass. And I can only ask for support and thank you for watching, because this is a first for me, and the feedback from this will help me if I ever decide to do something like this again, which I probably will. Anyways, in the future, I do actually plan on doing something else like this, hopefully. Mostly with the red variants, like the sharpshooter. That's one I've been interested in making a video over, just talking about sharpshooter tech. Obviously a much shorter video, but it would be probably fun enough to make a good video out of. And that's about it for the projects I've thought of so far. I'll probably pick up other things too along the way. But currently I'm just sort of roaming right now, just trying to get my bearings, trying to learn everything. Anyways, if you guys have made it this far, please just like and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I don't know why you dislike it. You're probably not a real gorilla if you dislike it, but, you know, to each their own. Anyways, have a good day. Enjoy your life. Hit those pogos. Pogos, gorilla mode, go wild, go crazy, and enjoy your day.